Knights at the Round Table, a round-table discussion on speculative fiction books and film.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining us a little bit late on Knights at the Round Table. I am going to be your Sonia for today. My name is Nathan. So this is Michael, Martin,
howdy,
Rupert joining us for the first time. And we are discussing today the 2017 movie Star Wars The Last Jedi. So let's start with general impressions.
I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm not like really deep into it. For a Star Wars movie, I thought it was quite good. I watched it in the theater with a couple other people who are much bigger Star Wars fans, and it was quite an enjoyable experience. You know, it still suffers from a lot of the stuff that I find Star Wars suffers from, but there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I quite enjoyed it as cinema.
Awesome. Martin.
So, I think, you know, when you watch this movie, it is an average movie. And I think when you put that up against the pantheon of Star Wars movies, which have, you know, rightly or wrongly, had some really great films, an average movie doesn't stack up a lot to the fan base. And as somebody who read all the extended stuff and, you know, what is now considered Legends, there are some parts in here where I go, but on the other hand, it gets the job done. It was entertaining. I mean, I think there's more volatile opinions than that on the internet. But
All right. Well, it's one of my favorite new Star Wars movies. I absolutely loved it to bits. Michael?
Okay, great. I do really love this movie. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I do really like the movie. But what I find interesting, just in terms of my own reaction about the movie, was I didn't come to that opinion easily. I didn't come to it right away. And what I found kind of odd about it was, and I think this is a reaction a lot of people had, is I came out of the movie for the first time feeling like there was a lot of stuff in there that was unexpected. There was a lot of stuff in there that was, as a longtime Star Wars fan, was a little more challenging than I'm used to from a Star Wars movie, and I found I had to kind of grapple with it for a little while, and eventually I've come down on the side of really liking it. But that was exceedingly difficult given all the online kind of rhetoric about it at the time. Made it extremely difficult because it really felt like battle lines had been drawn. It was polarizing, and you either thought it was the best Star Wars movie since forever, or you thought it was the worst Star Wars movie and terrible, and it destroyed the franchise and should be remade. And with that polarization, I found it really hard to kind of settle on my own feelings about it. But ultimately, I've come down on the side of really liking it because there's some really beautiful stuff in this movie. But it wasn't easy for me to grapple with. It wasn't like an easily digestible Star Wars film like, say, The Force Awakens was. It was like, here's everything you love about Star Wars served up on a silver platter. This, like, tried to do things differently, and I don't think Star Wars fans were used to that for quite some time. And I ended up really liking that. So you
would say it's the best Star Wars ever?
No. No, I would not.
I think that is definitely among false dichotomies the most false dichotomy ever.
Yeah,
yeah.
Obviously, Attack of the Clones.
I just watched that again recently, and
Hey, it ain't Knights of the Old Republic too. So you're high bar, guys.
Yeah,
that's true. Just to remind you, Eric, you are you are in charge of keeping us on track because I will lose track of time discussing this movie.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so we touched a little bit about the controversy online. I don't think we should linger too much on it because we should judge the movie on its own merits.
Just through the prism of me coming to terms with it was really difficult as an online Star Wars fan because they didn't make it easy. But anyway, we'll put that aside and just look at the movie itself. You're right.
All right, so okay, let's talk about it as a Star Wars movie. So what did we feel measured up and didn't?
Well, I think, like, right out of the gate, regardless of how you feel about this movie, cinematically, it is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It is. There are scenes in that Star Wars film that are probably, and you know, I would say among some of the best shot Star Wars scenes that are out there.
The Lightspeed Suicide
Holdo
Run.
going to Lightspeed,
yeah. Oh my God,
that black and white whole breathless,
and the
just
silence.
And the silence.
I was in a theater, packed theater. You could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
They actually had to post signs outside of some theaters in the United States saying, like, there's going to be a moment where it goes silent. That's nothing wrong with the picture. That's what the movie's supposed to do, you know, because some people just don't know how to watch movies. But yeah, that scene is amazing. Or even the Final Planet. I'm sorry, it's the name's escaping me right now.
Yeah, the Battle of Crate there.
Yeah,
Oh,
great.
God, the red and white
the red and white
colors
is
were just amazing.
unbelievably
You
nice.
know, just that one soldier leaning over, like, licking the salt and just like, just... That actually felt less like a Star Wars movie to me at that point, and that was like, this is what I want from a Dune movie. Like, I want that kind of just little feel. Yeah, just a little feeling like that alienness and
That texture,
whatnot.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The throne room fight, unbelievable. This is this was I'm trying to think. Definitely the first Star Wars episode to never have lightsabers cross.
Yeah.
In it,
Yeah.
they fight back to back. They fight side by side, but they don't actually fight with against each other with their lightsabers. But that sequence is up there as one of the greatest Star Wars sequences.
Yeah,
I think,
but
just
there's
that
this
sequence.
part where they do a cut and a guy's weapons have vanished, and doesn't that ruin the whole scene for you, Michael?
No, it doesn't.
Me neither. I didn't even notice that till the internet went through it frame by frame. So.
I didn't really realize that. You know, I've seen it 4 times and I didn't notice that yet.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sure that there were no booms and shot or accidental wristwatches on the original.
Yeah,
Or a stormtrooper accidentally hitting
his head. Like.
That's canon.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we can all agree, like, visually stunning film.
Absolutely.
And, like, just from a cinematic visual perspective, like, it's very refined and
I
interesting
like this
and
one
stylish.
personally for the world building that they did in it. I know I'm in the minority of this, but I really enjoyed the subversion of expectation with the casino planet.
Me too.
The feeling of fleshing out an actual world and whatnot, or a universe in this case. Plus, without that casino planet, you don't get the second best scene in the entire movie.
The very, very last scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And considering I watched this with my kids, I watched this with my fiance, who's also much more into Star Wars than I am. I grew up with Star Wars, but I've never been huge into it. That was something that actually got me. I was actually like, that's a touchstone for me.
Yeah.
Personally, I find this movie distinctly better than something like the Return of the Jedi or whatnot, which, clearing everything up and just, tying up loose ends. This was a world-expanding movie.
For sure. Yeah. It's and challenging in that sense, right? Like the Rogue One had kind of done that a little
I love
bit.
Rogue One.
I love Rogue One more every time I see it.
Me too. Oh my
It's
God,
incredible.
it's
The
so
first time
good.
I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good, and every single time it's gone up in my esteem. But
Rogue-
just that idea of showing, like, the grays of this world,
Rogue One is essentially the Winter Soldier of the Star Wars universe. It's
argue
a
that.
self-contained story, but it's also a genre shift. It's a World War I, Dirty Dozen movie set in the Star Wars universe. I love it.
I think this is where, and you just said it was genre shift, is where this movie suffers. Because I think you've got 2 movies in one. You've got a heist movie with Poe and Rose going off and trying to find whatever the slicer to do the things. Finn, yeah. Poe's back on the ship, and then you've got
Less Poe is best Poe.
yes.
Oh, dear.
I love Poe.
Only
Greatest hair in the universe.
Only good part about Poe was that phone trick over at the beginning of the movie.
Oh my God! And
that
set
is
the
sold
whole
because of
tone of the
Hux.
movie.
that one was sold like you could have had anybody deliver Poe's lines, but the acting from what's the I know that
Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason, yes, I love his. He's such an over-the-top caricature of the whiny little.
He's the banality of evil. He's the wiener guy who's carrying out the most wretched policies.
He
you can
is
imagine.
absolutely a stand-in for the worst part of every fandom you've ever met. This guy is like that slavish, absolutely beholden to the old fandom, and just taking the piss out of him felt so good for right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
But
you were talking. Yeah.
you know, like I say, you have a heist movie, but then you also have a very complex, you know, character-driven drama with Rey and Kylo Ren.
I don't think an A-B plot makes this movie suffer.
So,
That's a standard setup.
Where I think that this suffers is they give it time in the heist part. We have 18 hours to do this, and if you watch just the Rey parts, it's very evident she spends a number of days with Luke Skywalker. But when you watch it in totality, here we have 18 hours, it looks like she spends like an evening with Skywalker, and there's like greatest Jedi.
Well, yeah,
If I can push back on that a little bit and say the greatest Star Wars movie, Empire Strikes Back, Luke trains with Yoda for a grand total of like 2 days, right? And like, how much training did he actually get? But we accept it. We accept that that's going on over here, and it was very purposely a throwback to the Yoda Luke training with a completely different bent and with a completely different trainer with a completely different pupil. But it's that same type of thing, and they stretched and they accordion the timeline in Empire Strikes Back, and nobody really cares about that.
And
so
they
why
don't
should we care about
begin
it?
at the same time either. Like, you know, Rey's part with Luke begins right where Force Awakens left off. Whereas there clearly some time has passed between
not a lot, but
not a lot,
sometime.
but some time has passed. Yeah.
Well, not only that, like, this is a standard thing for movies to have different storylines operating on separate timescales too. I mean, wait till Dunkirk comes out. You've got you've got 3 separate timescales that you're working at. So I don't find that the suspension of disbelief over whether or not the heist is operating on a stricter timescale than Rey's training is operating on a different timescale as being a problem for me to overcome.
So for me, and where I can stretch my mind with Empire, because that is the direct callback, is you have moments like, hey, we're close enough we can get to Bespin. There's no time given, so you can accept that, like, maybe it gets stretched out a little bit. And then, you know, it is true. Like, Luke spends like a week with Yoda and then...
Maybe.
Yeah. But I think the difference with Luke Skywalker is he's never really a terribly good Jedi. Like, he falls off the AT-ATs. In Return of the Jedi, he eats it against the side of the Jabba's barge. Like, he's never picking stuff up and throwing them out. And even in Empire, he gets his clock cleaned. So... you kind of like, Yoda says, well, you haven't completed your training. He's like, I'm good enough for this, and then gets beaten up. I think it's the opposite with Rey, and that's where, for me, if it was going to be a heist movie, do a heist movie. If you wanted a drama movie, do a drama movie, because both those films have elements of really good stuff. I just could have ditched all the Canto Bight stuff and just gone Rey and Kylo Ren the whole film, and...
But again,
I
like,
it brought a lot of balance and nuance to the whole thing. I think it would have been too heavy if it was just Rey and the war stuff.
and that's like saying Return of the Jedi, only Luke in the throne room with the Emperor, like, because the stuff on the Forest Moon are that is like a heist type of thing as well, right? And so you know, that cross cutting and the tonal shifting. I mean, that's not just inherent to cinema, that's inherent to Star Wars movies. Like, they do that all the time.
Oh yeah, and I think, you know, Star Wars fans have to admit that Return of the Jedi ends with a teddy bear picnic. Like, there is some goofy stuff that happens in Star Wars.
It's always goofy stuff.
Those teddy bears ate a lot of stormtroopers.
Alright, so the Canto Bight thing, like, that's one thing that I've had so much trouble grappling with. Not for the exact same reason as you, Martin, but I do have issues within it. And there's things that I like about it. I like how it brings us into this world of Greys with, like, DJ and things like that. I like how it sets up that very final scene because, like, I love stories about myth-making and stories about stories. Like, I love Neil Gaiman stuff and everything, and that scratched that itch for me, and it was so unexpected, you know?
And Star Wars is so
the legend
in the
of
myth-making and everything.
And to see the myth actually trickle down to these, like, lower class, like, child slaves and everything. I love all of that, and I love Rose, and I love, like, so many aspects of it. And I also love how Canto Bight's all about the theme of the movie, one of the big themes of the movie, which is failure, you know? Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem that people have with the movie is it's about failure. It's about the resistance failing and getting whittled down to this small band that just barely survive, and it's about going to Canto Bight, and it feels like kind of a Shaggy Dog type of story where it's like it doesn't go anywhere and nothing comes of it because they fail, but it's about that. It's about failure, and it's about, like, Luke grappling with the failure of the old Jedi, the failure of him starting the new Jedi. It's so much about failure, and that's an uncomfortable difficult theme to tackle in a series that we expect to be kind of generally like light and fun and happy, even though, you know, dark side and all of that. Like, we expect things to work out, and this is a movie where everybody's just failing left and right, and and then we just have to deal with it. And I'm really interested to see how J.J. Abrams sticks the landing in Rise of Skywalker, because you have this big failure, and then he's got to try to like come back from that and wrap it up. But it made it so interesting to me, but challenging.
Well, and that's one of the ways I find that it mirrors the original series, because in Empire you've got a lot of the same themes, right? So what I liked is similar to how Empire showed the decadence and whatnot of, you know, Cloud City and all that stuff for the time. The, you know, expectation subversion of, you know, Den of Iniquity and all this stuff, and then going to this glamorous decadent planet. I'm like, oh yes. Now that might also be informed, again, I'm more of a video game nerd, so that might be informed a bit by my own experiences with stuff like Knights of the Old Republic, where that was very much baked into it. So the idea of going through that decadence and showing that and spending that time there, I enjoyed that quite a bit. Granted, I also found Rose to be one of the better characters in this movie. You know, I really enjoyed her particular... she doesn't have so much of an arc, as she already is fully formed as a personality, and she ends up as a driver of plot instead of being driven by.
And she offers a unique perspective, which is welcome in the movie, I think.
Also, she's fully willing to brain a guy with a spanner, so I'm up. Yeah.
So, I think that there is the failure aspect to it, but I think there's smart failure and bad failure, and I think that that's where Empire sets it up better. Is the Empire comes out of hyperspace too late, Rebels raise the shields. Empire does a ground assault, Rebels manage to get away. Han gets stuck in the asteroid field, Vader hires the bounty hunters. There's a back and forth, whereas this, everybody just fails. Good, bad, they all suck. Like, you know, and this is where less Poe Dameron is good. Every time, like, Poe Dameron, this may be where I go into too much of the lore, every time Poe Dameron leads an assault, everybody dies. Like, he's unequivocally the worst general they have. Like, he loses 80% of his force in every engagement.
Well, that was part of the point of the movie.
But here's the thing that really bugged me, and maybe this is just because of my whole background and whatnot. He's a captain. At best, he's maybe captain of the Air Guard, so maybe he's CAG.
Right.
What on earth right does he have questioning anybody above him? That guy should have been shot in the face the first time he stormed onto that bridge.
Right, and the movie is about humbling him, though. Like,
It's
so
true.
you're absolutely
Absolutely.
right, and the movie knows that,
but
and it humbles him.
This guy gets so many times to just
Kill everybody under his command?
everybody gives him too much. Like, he's just given to. I know Poe Dameron's actor isn't necessarily the most Caucasian guy, but wow, he was definitely written as entitled white guy.
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
this guy's given every opportunity in the book and every leeway and whatnot, and just every time he confronts anybody in this movie makes me hate him more, and also makes me wish that somebody would point out, hey dude, you're under my command, not the other way around.
But you know what? Like, and I'm definitely projecting onto this. I'm definitely applying onto this. But the one who gives him the most chances is Leia.
Yeah.
Because she takes a shine to him, because she likes him, and maybe, just maybe, he reminds her of the love of her life.
Yeah.
You know, who had a very similar swagger and managed and was maybe just luckier. You know.
Yeah.
They're definitely cut from the same cloth. Poe is more kind of loyal to the cause from the beginning, as opposed to Han, who has to grow into it. But Han just was luckier. But I get the impression that she senses that in him, and maybe I'm reading a bit like I read all the Poe Dameron series from Marvel, the comic book series, and I really liked it, and I think there is that sense in there. They really make it clear that like that's where it's coming from. So yeah, she is giving him a lot of chances, and too many chances, and he messes up so much, and you see that, and he knows that, and hopefully by the end of the movie he's grown a little bit.
But that movie has a lot to say about the Han character in particular, even though he's not in that movie, because Poe is an exemplification of that role, but so is Benicio del Toro.
DJ.
You know, he's also an exemplification of like, well, what if Han really was just in it for the money?
Yeah.
What if there hadn't been a pretty girl involved?
That mercenary spirit, right?
I kind of like that they had that in there.
Oh,
It's like,
I
by the
love
way,
it.
reality.
Yeah.
You know
Like,
what? I'm
they're
gonna go
not
with the
gonna be
people
on your
who
side
look
all
like
the
they're
time.
probably gonna win, and
Yeah.
in terms of survival, that made the most sense. So we can keep talking about this, but just want to make sure we don't run out of time and not talk about Luke, right? I mean, we haven't really dove into Luke.
Definitely.
Right?
This is one thing that I want to bring back to it. There's Luke, and there's the concept of like the gray area that you talk to that are two really important things in this movie. But let's focus on Luke for.
He's kind of important.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they're going to just forget about him for the next one.
Yeah.
Like, he's gone, right?
There's no way Mark
No.
Hamill's in the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, character-wise, I mean, his story's done.
Yeah. Another thing that I think was very off-putting for people was the depiction of Luke not as the, like, triumphant, masterful, warrior monk that we all hoped it would be, and he's just racked by guilt and the feeling of failure and the feeling that, maybe that he was set up to fail, or maybe that he had all this pressure on him and he just messed it up, and that's not what people wanted to see. People wanted to see a Luke, that linear progression from where we saw him before.
They wanted
where
to
he
see
just,
Luke from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, they wanted Luke ascendant.
I don't
and we
think
didn't get
that these people wanted Luke from the movies. They wanted Luke from their memories. 'Cause as somebody who's watched these movies more of a recent thing, and definitely as an adult, that Luke that's in that movie is absolutely a continuation of but I just wanted to go to wherever place instead of doing
Tosche
my
Station
Tosche
to get some power converters.
The whiny little kid from the backwater planet doesn't magically become, the perfect guy.
No, this is a kid who was woefully unprepared, who was trained for maybe 2 weeks, who suddenly became a Jedi Master by default because there was nobody else around.
Which is actually
I'd
why
argue Luke is the best Jedi Master by the fact everybody else is dead.
Yeah, but this is also why I like the comparison to Rey, because Rey was, instead of this whiny little person who's had a family and all the rest of the stuff.
Eager.
Well, not only that, she was self-sufficient.
Yeah.
She was a go-getter, a starter. I much prefer that type of character. And if you're going to, and if you're going to talk about linear progression, that one makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I also like the fact just that they didn't, and who knows what's going to happen in the last episode, like they could completely reverse this, but the idea that she didn't come from any significant family or background or something like that, that
if
it could
they
be,
reverse this on me, I'm going to be
I hope they
upset.
don't. It's like that
Me
kid at
too.
the end, the very last kid. He has the Force. You don't have to be part of a dynasty to be a
He was
strong
Qui-Gon
Force.
Jinn's long-lost love child.
Don't start circling. Okay, this is definitely a guy who's read the extended universe stuff, because this is everything I
But
hate. about
everything
that.
doesn't have to be connected. She could. I hope that she came from quote unquote nobodies, because if she did, that makes her an interesting character as opposed to like Obi-Wan's
And that makes-
granddaughter somehow or something.
That
like
also
that.
means that anybody could have
Exactly.
been her.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
That
means
is it.
It means that it's the motivation and the drive and not your lineage.
Yeah.
Honestly, the one thing I was expecting, and for me, I thought they were building up to this, was I was expecting a reversal in roles by the end of the movie. When they were back to back in the throne room, I expected Rey to fall and Ben to stand up. I'm kind of glad that they didn't. Just because I do love the cosplaying tantrum guy just so much.
He's good.
Oh my god.
He's an excellent villain.
Oh, I
Excellent
love
villain.
him.
Oh my god, just giving somebody with that temperament that much power and that much control, it's like, this just warms the cockles of my heart.
But this is a thing that I wanted to bring back to the Grey thing. I'm a huge fan of KOTOR, and Grey Jedi has always been something that I thought was missing from Star Wars. Like this whole binary, like good and evil, and there's nothing in between, and you just go from one to the other without like, passing through any stages. I thought that Luke's downfall and the loss of all the Jedi texts and all of these things really, brought this forward as a distinct possibility that this is, like, there's no more Sith, there's no more Jedi, like, what is the path forward?
Yeah.
Rey and Kylo and whatever they decide to do.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Rogue One, they alluded to the whole the will.
Yes.
And that's, for me, I mean, like that's going back to KOTOR for me for the whole Grey Jedi and the idea of the no one path and whatnot. So yeah, no, I was really, into that kind of idea of The thing that always bothers me, though, when I'm having arguments with people over this movie, is when they quote the bad guy as if he was the point of the movie. The point of the movie is not to kill your past. Okay? If you're quoting the bad guy, you might be taking the wrong lesson. All right? One might say, I'm just saying, I think the point of the movie absolutely was, failure.
Absolutely.
You've got to get back up, and sometimes the only way forward is failure.
And honestly, with like how high expectations were for that movie, which is basically like this era's Empire, and everybody was expecting it to be, and everybody was expecting it to fail miserably, having a movie that centers around a theme of repeated failure is entirely appropriate.
It's more watchable for me than The Force Awakens. If I were to say top 3 Star Wars movies, I would put, obviously, Empire, Star Wars, and then probably this one. If for no other reason than I really love that Lightspeed Suicide Run.
It is amazing.
You got a big TV, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, but doesn't that break every other piece of Star Wars, whatever, channeling my internet rage? No, it doesn't.
I was about to say, this is a fantasy. I mean, we literally got magic, guys.
You've got laser sword wielding space wizards.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But the thing I want to do is I want to meet who does the HR recruiting for the bad guys. Because they always
fantastic,
outnumber, like, hey, Don, HR, yeah, we just lost Starkiller Base and like 8 million dudes. We need to populate 30 starships. Got you covered. Like, they have an unlimited number of people that
I want to see the Starship Troopers recruitment guy with only one leg in the wheelchair. You want to be part of the order there?
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that Finn's origin story really speaks to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're brainwashing
child
soldiers.
Exactly, child
You know,
soldiers.
you know what? One thing, as like a continuity geek, the thing that bugs me about this sequel series so far is like they tried to ape A New Hope so much in The Force Awakens that they chose to just throw you into this new world and this new era of politics and everything like that without really giving the backstory. But A New Hope was episode 4, and there was room to tell the backstory of the fall of the Republic, the rise of the Empire, how all that worked. But they kind of throw you in, and like I never understood. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I never understood in The Force Awakens what the relationship was between the New Republic and the First Order and the Resistance. Like, what is the relationship there? And then I guess in The Force Awakens they destroy the capital planets of the New Republic, so now all that's left is the First Order and the Resistance. But the First Order, were they like this fringe organization, or were they actually like, did they have control of a lot of planets? Like, I don't understand the relationship there. And then now by the end of The Last Jedi, it seems like the Resistance is a paltry few huddling on the Millennium Falcon, and the First Order, I guess, rules the galaxy. But just like, that has never been very clear to me, and I don't need everything explained, but it's just like, I don't understand all that relationship.
In the original trilogy, like, they didn't explain that much, like, the Empire and the Resistance.
But all they said was
Star Wars is about.
all they said, the galaxy was ruled by the Empire,
yeah,
and you have the rebellion. That makes sense. But here, in Force Awakens, there is the New Republic. Did they rule the galaxy? Did the First Order rule the galaxy?
Not.
Did they rule parts of the galaxy?
How would they have time to overthrow an entire galaxy of Empire? Like, okay, sure, at Return of the Jedi, they break the Death Star, they throw out the Emperor and everything, but that's not, like, retaking thousands of worlds back.
But the Empire was around for 19 years, and we've been 30 years since Return of the Jedi, right? And so I just don't get that, but, like, it speaks to your point of, like, recruitment, like, how much influence did the First Order have? Like, do they own planets? Like, are they? Is there a collection of planets that are the First Order planets, or are they just like this rogue set of like starships going through the galaxy, just like throwing their weight around? I don't get the nature of the First Order.
Where if there's a stumbling block, a lot of sci-fi. Forget this movie, but a lot of sci-fi suffers in sequels is bigification. The Star Destroyers have to be twice the size. The Mega Star Destroyer has to be 60 kilometers long. Like, you could have accomplished the same chase with 2 Star Destroyers chasing Leia.
We're unfortunately running out of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to move on to final impressions and star ratings. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, I do, like, quibbles aside, I do come down strongly in favor of this movie. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but I loved the challenge that I got from it, which was not something I was used to after a while from Star Wars. So, we'll give I'll give it 4 stars just to give room for the 5-star masterpieces in the series. But like, it's a high 4 stars for me, and I really do like it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a solid 5 stars. I love this movie.
I'm 2.5. It's acceptable sci-fi. You'll watch it, be entertained. It was a commercial success, made $1 billion. We'll keep getting Star Wars, so at least there'll be content to fight about for years.
For me, probably solid 3 out of 5. It's a Star Wars movie. I'll watch it when I have to, and I'll enjoy it.
Gun to your head, you'll watch it. Okay.
No. I mean, like, I will absolutely, like, my fiance loves this stuff. My dad loves this stuff. My kids love this stuff. I'm not adverse to being exposed to stuff that's not in my wheelhouse. It's a very watchable movie. Would I watch it on my own? Not really. There's other things that I'd rather fill my time with, but solid 3 out of 5 for me. I mean, and for a Star Wars movie, one of the better ones.
Alright, we will draw the next movie. Since you're the newcomer here, I will have you draw it.
And we have... Can I come back?
Of course you can.
We have Kevin Smith's masterpiece, Dogma.
Ooh, Dogma.
Ooh. Whoa.
No year written on it? Sometime in the 90s.
1999.
Yes,
Oh, there you go. Alright, so at some point in the future we will be filming about Dogma. Thank you so much for joining us today for this stream/YouTube video. And don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us comments if you would like to see some movies reviewed or if you have opinions about Star Wars.
Nobody has.
Bye.
For opinions.